So this government shutdown, some of the challenges that we've experienced have been nuanced, right? Like the people who are doing the account or whatever, someone has to approve the account is furloughed,
Yeah.
or the person that needs to, we had during one furlough a few years back where we were literally up against the gun. 2 more days, 2 more days, every contract that we had in that space, right, was going to end, and we would have just been completely gone from this one entire agency. And so, luckily for us, right, the contract gods came in, and we ended up getting our option years, exercised. But if 2 more days had went, there wouldn't have been a contract there would have been anything to extend because it would
Yeah.
already expired. And so that would have been bad for the government, or for the customer, the agency, as well as for the employees that were there, because it wouldn't have been a shortcoming on their behalf of them not being able to show up and work. So difficult times for sure.
Yeah. And a lot of those logistical things are, so they're not big picture strategic failure kinds of things, but it's so much of that things like this, like a shutdown, they really break a bunch of stuff. They mess up people getting their badges renewed. They mess up getting GFE laptops sent to somebody. They mess up your training schedule that you did years out in advance. And I know that kind of goes into one of those categories of like, okay, it's a problem, but you can't, it just is what it is. But it makes things so much harder, which is I also where a lot of times I think it kind of flows into the back office, the support roles, because it's weird, right? Being a government contractor, like the business of your company is different than the business of your projects. Like your projects are doing something, you know, different. And now, like, I mean, I'm sure, like in touch directly with, program employees. Are you hearing what questions are you getting from folks about shutdown time and what they should be doing? What kinds of questions have you been hearing?
I haven't heard a single question. Perhaps they don't think I'm the person to come to, but because
Well, and maybe your team. So, are a lot of your folks, have they all been kind of down at your project sites for a while? So maybe
yep,
they've just been through it, right? Maybe that's
my next
yeah.
thing. They'll probably
Now,
just go around.
we've had a,
and
we've had a couple new folks who've come on board, and their questions have been like immediate, like, hey, so do I show up tomorrow? Because today was my first day. Like we had some people start on October 1st, and the first was the first day of the shutdown. And
that's
so
always
that
hard.
that was like, well, do I show up, or what do I do? I don't know. And so there was a lot of communication that happened with the new people that we had on board. And so that was obvious, but didn't think about it in that regard, that we have new people that are going to be starting on the same day that the government's going to be that's
Yeah.
going to be shut down. And foresight, I would say, man, we probably should have reached out to them beforehand to say, hey, listen, it's okay, you're still authorized to come to work, but it just didn't cross your minds when you're doing the operational day to day.
But there's always a lot of that kind of stuff that pops up. It's like, oh yeah, we probably should have told people about that. I didn't think about it. Yeah. So I mean, when you first government shutdown here that you're going through. So what, as a person involved in it who's near it, and it's obviously, so that's the thing about so much of GovCon. There's not like some book you can go read or something you can go
With
Google, right? What kinds of things pop into your head as questions about shutdowns, about how to deal with them, about what do you think is important for people to know?
um, so I'm curious as to how you deal with a shutdown long term. I know that the longest shutdown I think was like 35 days. So I mean, not really like a long time in terms of like affecting funding, but I don't know just how you would plan to deal with that. I know that you spoke about being proactive was the best solution, but what would you do if you're just run out of if you need people to still come to work and it's not looking like there's a solution in sight?
So so some of this comes down to really kind of pure timing and luck, right? Because if your contract happens to be in place way after the shutdown, then you're probably all right from that standpoint. The bad times, and this also happened with some of the Doge impacts when people were getting rift and all of that. If your contract came up for renewal right in the middle of one of those periods, like if your contract is up for renewal like right now, you very well might have a problem. If
Okay.
you've got 8 or 9 months worth, I mean, it's not that it's good and that it's not a problem, but it's much more manageable to deal with. But the what do you do aspect on longer term, the things that I've seen suffer. So first off, you end up with a retention problem. It's almost like, after there's a flood or a hurricane and you go to that area, you see some people that move out of that area, where even if somebody said like, we're going to rebuild your house for you, they're like,
Mm,
Yeah.
enough.
okay.
I've been through this 2 or 3 times. I ain't going to live next to this river anymore. I'm going to go someplace else. You find people that are decide that GovCon, that's what gets them out of it. That they just don't think that.
The uncertainty.
Yeah, right. Like, because a lot of people don't even know this is an option, right? They didn't think it could
Yeah.
happen. It's the 100-year floodplain type situation where you're living somewhere and you're like, I didn't know it could flood here. You didn't know this thing could shut down. You're like, what do you mean it's closed? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I see that happen, where you'll have a retention spike in the future where, again, it's hard to get in front of. It's hard, as much as that is, I always preach transparency to people. Like, you need to tell your employees that they're on a project. You need to tell your employees that a recompete's coming, that if something gets descoped out of the program, you need to tell them. Like, I've been around contracts. So I won a contract at Fort Benning one time, and I showed up to do transition, and I met with a guy. They said, these people do sysadmin on this, these people whatever. This guy Javier is fantastic. You really hope you can keep him. And so I went in and sat down with this fella and sat down with Javier, and I'm talking to him about kind of, with transition, we really want to make sure that you stay on and all this kind of stuff. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, your contract, like, we won the contract that you're on. That contract was up for bid. I mean, you want to talk about awkward, right? Like, I'm talking
Yeah.
to this dude like face to face in a conference room in Georgia, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like,
So
what
are
are you
you
talking
saying I'm
about?
fired? I'm like, well, I'm not telling you you're fired because you don't work for me yet.